I mean, come on. Honestly, really and truly, like I'm just blown away at the stupidity of some of these executives. I gotta say that. Just really, really, really stupid people, because you know what, guys? This doesn't make sense. You don't go with Bad Bunny when you are, let's just say, on thin ice as it is, okay? Okay? Because like we're talking companies like Disney, NFL, they want to get their merger done, and they pick this vulgar, and I mean vulgar, artist who has no use for the President of the United States, no use for the United States, frankly, and whose music is unintelligible while, frankly, disgusting. I mean, whatever happened to, I don't know, the halftime show being family friendly? I remember when it was a big deal when, who was it? Janet Jackson lost part of her top, and we're all worked up about that. Wow. Okay, we're going to get into that today. Plus, we get to talk a little bit about what's going on in terms of Comey, Letitia, etc. I'll tell you, there really is a double standard, a massive double standard. Oh, and this is good, you guys. You're not going to believe this. Rosie O'Donnell, her own therapist is trying to talk her off the ledge because her TDS is so bad. But you know what? It's to be expected. It is Rosie after all. Anyway, we get back to the giant mistake that the NFL is making, and it is huge. Roger Goodell, you should know better, buddy boy. Instead of choosing this really horrible performance, Bad Bunny, bad disaster for the NFL, okay? Because they're already up to here, right? They've already encouraged the wrath of most of America. Remember when people just stopped watching because of Colin Kaepernick and the take the knee thing? We had to have the black national anthem and the regular national anthem. I mean, for goodness sakes, we've already been through there. And we came out on the other side, and this is what they want to take us back to. Somebody who is very, very polarizing, very, I'm just going to say it, disgusting. Okay, so I went and looked up these lyrics, and tú sabes que yo hablo español. Sí, I speak Spanish, even though I'm Irish. Go figure. I speak a lot of languages, actually. I have a knack for them. It must be the music thing. Anyway, I'm looking at this stuff in Spanish, and I'm like, okay, I can't bring this to you in Spanish, let alone English. So how exactly is he going to be on the stage on FCC-controlled airwaves? This is Brendan Carr. This is your specialty. I think you need to step up to the plate. Okay, so they get a bad pick. This is the Bad Bunny, who likes to wear makeup and funny clothes and is very fluid because you got to support the LGBTQ and God knows what, however many letters. I never get that right. But I would just say this is not the time and the place. Oh yeah. Apparently he likes to wear dresses with big boots and sneakers too. It is neither the time nor the place. This is somebody who is uber political, somebody who does not like Donald Trump, somebody who actually came out and said this one. Okay, he used a word that is a bad word about ICE. Maldito, he said. There are many reasons why he didn't show up in the U.S. He decided to cancel his U.S. tour, and none of them was out of hate. All of the shows have been successful. We were talking, and we were very concerned that the maldito, he said, ICE could be outside my concert. Okay, so that's the reason. And yet, apparently when Roger Goodell and the NFL offer you a big enough paycheck, you're willing to come back, with dresses and rhinestones on. Right? You're ready to party. Now that somebody's willing to foot the bill in a big way, here he is talking about how he won't perform in the United States. Again, unless the NFL comes calling.
I'm never performing in the U.S. again. I'm scared that ICE might raid the venue outside my show. And honestly, I can't risk the safety of my fans like that. Mainland America just doesn't feel necessary to me anymore. I've already performed.
Mainland America just does not feel necessary to me anymore. Who needs America? I mean, I'm Puerto Rican, and I'm just going to play the Puerto Rican circuit and the Mexican circuit and God knows what else, but I'm not going to the United States of America. No, don't need them. Well, not until the NFL calls.
There are plenty of times fans in the U.S. have had lots of chances to see me live. That being said, I still care deeply about my Latino and Puerto Rican fans living in the States. Seeing me perform in Puerto Rico is always an option. That's why in my upcoming world tour, there are no stops in the continental US. This isn't about hate, it's about responsibility and respect. I want my Latino and Boricua fans to understand that you're always in my heart. You can come see me in Puerto Rico or catch me in one of the other countries I'm visiting, but I
Maybe
can't,
not.
in good conscience, keep putting you at risk just to perform in the mainland US. I know for a lot of people, this feels like a sacrifice, but I want my stage to be a place of unity. My music is about love, about belonging. It's not supposed to be a reason to live in fear.
Okay, Roger, what are you thinking? Comcast, NBC, what are you thinking? Hey, Bob Iger over at ABC, I mean, you got a deal pending that you're going to need DOJ approval, FCC approval, and, well, maybe a few others. I'm thinking FTC approval as well. I mean, do you really want to be poking the bear, so to speak? Doesn't the president usually go to the Super Bowl, right? Now you're going to have this, what's his name? I want to keep calling him Big Bunny, but he's Bad Bunny up there, who's going to be a bad disaster, who's going to be super political. All of his songs are. I mean, I actually researched this. This is like not what I normally like to do in my spare time, shall we say. Look at lyrics, like Bad Bunny's lyrics. But there's a song called Zafaera, and it came out in 2020, and it is so bad, you guys. Like, it is so bad. I actually had a graphic made up, and I crossed out the swear words, but I just can't actually. You can go look it up if you want. Like, it's bad. I'm like, you know what? This is not appropriate. Like, it's not appropriate for adults, let alone children that might actually, I don't know, young people could be watching this show. We try to keep it clean, okay? We try to keep it clean. Clearly, Bad Bunny does not try to keep it clean. Oh, but the kids don't know because it's all in Spanish and nobody can understand him. Anyway, even in Spanish. I was actually talking with a friend of mine who immigrated to this country legally from Argentina, and she's like, you know what? I can't understand him in Spanish, and I can't understand him in English. He just doesn't articulate his words very well. Well, maybe when you're saying things like that, it's like a safe way to go. Maybe you don't want to articulate those words so well, because those words are really, really bad. I mean, we're talking total glorifications of all kinds of like misogynist, sexual stuff that we're not going to get into. Total objectification of women. Any parent would be horrified to hear this. Just horrified, or adult, okay? Adult. There's glorification of drug and alcohol in his songs, tied to all this party life. And there's very violent undertones in these early, what they call trap tracks. See? I'm actually a classical musician by background, but occasionally I step into learning a few things about Latino rap. This guy is bad news, okay? So Roger Goodell goes out and thinks, well, we got to get more international, right? So let's go and hire him, even though he said all these things about maldito ICE. I mean, that couldn't come at a worse time, right? Consider what's been going on. By the way, we've had a lot of tragedy. You know that over the weekend, and my heart goes out to everyone, and I'm saying prayers. And it shouldn't be like this. It just shouldn't be like this. And we need to find some way to come together. So therefore, it's not by bringing an artist like this in to sow more division at the Super Bowl. It really should be about, finding someone who can unite everybody. I mean, I'd take Taylor Swift at this point. I mean, she's getting married, right? She's succumbed to societal pressure, marrying one Travis Kelce. But look, I mean, hey, what happened to Adele? What happened to, there's plenty of people out there. But sometimes I think these executives just aren't so smart, or they're so full of themselves, right? They're billionaires in their own right. One Bob Iger over at Disney, which owns ESPN, and one Roger Goodell, which owns the NFL. Now they're doing this merger, you see, between ESPN and the NFL. And this merger actually is something that, they're going to need approval for. DOJ, FTC, FCC could weigh in. The plan is to acquire the NFL network, the NFL's linear red zone channel distribution, and also NFL fantasy. Now, NFL is going to receive 10% equity stake in the deal in ESPN if this whole thing goes through. But again, they're waiting on approval. And I'm not so sure that the approval is going to come. I mean, you know what Brennan's been saying. He's been looking into ABC already and Disney. He launched an investigation. He's concerned about their DEI practices. Now they go out and do this on the heels of the Kimmel thing? I mean, Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, for goodness sakes. I mean, that was just awful, 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 awful. And my friend Charlie and his memory just being, you know, treated so improperly in that, and the idea that Sinclair and the other one, Nexstar, are coming back to the table. Shame on them. They really should have gotten rid of this show absolutely forever for good. But I will say this merger's at risk. I mean, if I'm the Trump administration, am I going to bend over backwards to help you guys when you get this really, really aggressively anti-American and then anti-law enforcement performer, likely, who is going to be saying things on the stage? And if you look at all of his songs, they all have plenty of swear words in them. Again, they're in Spanish. And nobody can understand him because he doesn't pronounce well in Spanish nor in English. So does it fly by the FCC? No. Brennan's going to be all over this, okay? So I'm looking at him like, boy, NBC, that's not really very good news for you. Weren't you like trying to like be your own thing, right? That's why you spun off or about to spin off all those cable entities, because you want to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. Now you get this insanity coming your way, and believe me, it is insanity. I mean, this guy is bad news. The stuff is disgusting. And again, I couldn't even put it. I had it on a graphic. I showed it to someone this morning. I'm like, can you believe this? Look, I can't say these things. I would not feel comfortable saying these things, but he's out there singing them away. And, you know, this is what is part of the problem, honestly, with society. When you've got a cultural element like that thinks that abuse of women or the glorification of that party scene is okay, then we have a real problem. And then you get the NFL saying, ho, ho, bring it on. Let's have a party, and this will help us somehow. This is going to help us be bigger and better and more international, because that's part of the goal here. They're trying to go really international. I will say this, you're putting so much at risk. You're putting your ABC deal at risk. You're putting NBC at risk. All for what? Because you want to be able to say, hey, we can go big, we can go wide, we can go global with our football. You know what? I'll tell you, the Europeans are never really going to love it. I did talk to my cousins in Ireland this weekend. Apparently, some people did watch the Steelers-Vikings and game that was happening in Dublin. And that is a big, push that they're making, okay? So, Roger Goodell wants to have 16 games internationally, and he wants to take football along with Bob Iger all over the world. So they want to make it big. Okay, that's fine. That's a good business, lofty goal for you guys to have. But do we have to suffer in the process? Do we have to suffer with the halftime show because you think that you want to recruit more people in the Hispanic community to watch? That's not cool. That's not cool. Okay, Roger Goodell emphasizes NFL's global vision as Steelers-Vikings meet in their Ireland debut again in Dublin over the weekend. It carries so much weight because they're going to go global with this thing. They want to have 16 different countries. They want everybody to love football. But what are we giving up in the process? Okay, we're exporting football, fine. But why are we importing people who don't like America? Who don't want to come to America, and unless you offer them $1 gazillion. People with really, really, really bad language that they're promoting to our youth, I don't think it's worth it, frankly. I really don't. This is him in Allure. Allure magazine did a whole profile on this guy because apparently he's the hottest thing since sliced bread over Spotify, actually. He does very, very well for music downloads on Spotify. Again, I don't think people really do know what they're listening to, but if you do, you'll find out pretty quick. He's bad news. So what does it mean for NBC? Well, I will tell you, it's probably going to put NBC in a very treacherous place. Remember years ago, we were talking about that when Janet Jackson had her wardrobe malfunction, and that was a big mess, and there were FCC fines that had to be paid, and I think that was an honest to God just mistake. Well, what happens here? if this person gets up and says some of the things that he will likely say. I can also tell you, he said some terrible things about the president, and that actually, in a terrible word, let me bring it up for you because the translation doesn't even totally capture it. I don't even know if I can say this word. Okay. So why don't I go with this? I'll give you a euphemism for it. It's basically, no, I can't even fully, like, it's so crazy inappropriate. Okay, how about the C word for a woman? It's like as bad or worse than that, what this guy is calling the president. So again, I go back to why are we doing this? Why are we putting somebody on the air who is, frankly, in my estimation, so filled with hate that he would call the president that bad word in Spanish, and we're going to just sit there and take it? I don't think so. NBC, wake up. You know, ESPN, wake up. All of you better wake up to the risk that you are putting upon yourself and your shareholders, because, listen, you want to be in good stead with the FCC. And don't give me this free speech nonsense. Like, there are rules, and you cannot swear, even if it's in another language. You can't have these kinds of lyrics. It's got to actually change. And I would say that Brennan's going to be all over it, okay? He's not going to allow for this. So you better wake up, and you better recognize, NFL, get with the program. My recommendation is you get rid of Bad Bunny. If you can't get rid of Bad Bunny, we're going to get rid of you. Okay, people just aren't going to watch. This is what happened before. You finally got your ratings back, but you can't seem to recognize where the public really is. No, you just have to keep pushing it. Maybe because, I don't know, Roger and Bob want to, mess with Donald Trump. Maybe because you want to prove something, like, oh, maybe you don't want your merger to go through. I don't know. But listen, this is not a good move. Meanwhile, you know who made some really bad moves? One, James Comey, and he's living to pay the price. James Comey officially indicted. We reported that news on Friday, but I've been thinking about this, not only in terms of what went down with Comey, but in terms of the media reaction to all of this, because the media is like going bonkers. Oh my God, I can't believe that this happened. This is terrible. This is, we're living in fascism, this, that, and the other. And I keep going back to, wait a second. I do recall that a former president of the United States actually said that Donald Trump was an illegitimate president. I mean, not to mention Hillary Clinton, not to mention Maxine Waters, not to mention like a slew of these people, okay? So don't give me that, oh my gosh, we're living in a totalitarian, authoritarian state, all that jazz. No, not with what you did. Anyway, what's being alleged here, as you guys know, is that Andy McCabe, who was his deputy, may have done some leaking, and he told Comey, hey, I did this leaking, and Comey apparently said to him, hey, way to go, high five. And so what's coming up is whether or not McCabe is telling the truth or Comey is telling the truth. And it's resulted in this indictment. So Lindsay Halligan was just put in recently, like, I don't know, within the last 10 days or so, because they had to get Eric Siebert out because he was not willing to move forward. Even though they had everything together with this case, think about that. He was not willing to move forward with that. He apparently had, allegedly per Donald Trump and some other Republicans, some very close Democratic ties. And you also had another thing going on. You had Comey's son-in-law working in that very office. That one blew me away. I mean, how did we not know about that? Comey's son-in-law, was he trying to protect his dad? He's like a super spy. His father-in-law. Anyway, this is a big deal because it goes back to this 2020 testimony that he gave alongside Ted Cruz. I want you to hear it.
To another topic. On May 3rd, 2017, in this committee, Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal and that you were directly aware of it and that you directly authorized it. Now, what Mr. McCabe is saying and what you testified to this committee cannot both be true. One or the other is false. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
All right, I'm going to make a final point because my time has expired. This investigation of the president was corrupt. The FBI and the Department of Justice were politicized and weaponized. And in my opinion, there are only two possibilities: that you were deliberately corrupt or woefully incompetent. And I don't believe you were incompetent. This has done severe damage to the professionals and the honorable men and women at the FBI, because law enforcement should not be used as a political weapon.
Well, that's the truth. That is the truth. That is the truth. And Comey has now been indicted and will theoretically pay the price if it turns out he did lie, which the president has come out with full force saying. And by the way, I'm going to get into that, because the difference between how the Democrats went about doing this and the way the Trump administration is doing this, there's a difference. There's a difference because Donald Trump just comes right out and says it, right? Like, he just says it, and he's like, yeah, we want Pam to go after him and this, that, and the other. And so then people say, oh, he's weaponizing the government. Well, Biden did all that stuff. All of it. So did Obama, but they did it behind closed doors. And so, here you just got the president coming out and saying it all. That's the difference, because, he talks.
Now, this is about justice. He lied a lot, but this was a very important thing. He could have said, well, maybe, or I don't remember. He didn't say that. He gave a very specific answer, and then he verified it numerous times, and he got caught. The problem that Comey has is he got caught lying. And he was very strong. It's not like, well, maybe, or I don't remember. He gave a very specific answer because it was a very powerful question, a very important question. And when he gave the answer, the only problem is he got caught. So,
yeah. Well, here's another one. I want to play this for you because remember how we talked about how he leaked some information to his Columbia professor friend so that the Columbia professor friend could then go and leak it to the newspapers? I believe it was the New York Times. Watch.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No. I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
Okay, so now we can parse words here. So I guess technically he did not ask somebody who was in the FBI to leak it. He asked a friend of his. But isn't he then doing the leaking? I mean, he's giving something to his friend? And he's saying, hey, friend, go and leak this because I actually want this special investigation to happen. That's kind of bad, guys. Like, I don't know how you turn that one into anything other than what it is, which is a you-know-what sandwich. Anyway, Brennan is now on defense. You remember John Brennan, right? He's like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. They're not coming after me. They couldn't possibly be coming after me, despite the fact that Trump says, oh, they're coming for a lot of people. Again, he comes right out and says it, which is, part of what gets him in a little bit of trouble. But believe me, this was all going down before with the other guys. Just they were playing funny games, like calling their Columbia professor friends. Here we go.
Comey has been indicted. Who is the next person on your list in this retribution?
it's not a list, but I think there'll be others. I mean, they're corrupt. These were corrupt, radical left Democrats. Because Comey essentially was he was worse than a Democrat. I would say the Democrats are better than Comey. But no, there'll be others. Look, that's my opinion. They weaponized the Justice Department like nobody in history. What they've done is terrible. And so I hope there are others, because You can't let this happen to a country.
Will you appoint a permanent U.S. attorney to try this case? Lindsay
You
Halligan
can't
has
let it
never
happen
tried.
to a country. You absolutely cannot. And so now I want to go to John Brennan. Okay, so it's like super duper deep state. John Brennan, who's on set at MSNBC saying, well, they can't go after me for anything. And just think about what he's saying here, because remember, John Brennan was one of those that signed on to the 51X spooks. They all knew that the Hunter Biden laptop was being investigated by the FBI, but they just sat there and flat out lied to you over and over again. This guy went on television. He was an MSNBC contributor and just lied to you over and over and over again. I mean, that's pretty gross. Watch.
I don't see any case against me. I have looked back on all of my actions and decisions, and with John Durham, the special counsel, and others that have looked at what we did, it was certainly consistent with our legal authorities and with the law. So I don't know what they're referring to there. Individuals who used to work in the government, even if their security clearances were revoked, they could be subpoenaed. They could be, called to provide testimony in support of whatever allegations they have. I don't see a case there.
Trump has announced.
I'm kind of seeing a case, John Brennan. I think there might be one. And I think you're going to be in a lot of trouble, and I think they're going to find a lot of things. Again, let's talk about the difference between how this corruption is sort of approached, right? Obama was doing all kinds of things. Don't forget, TULSI has uncovered that meeting he held in December, right before the transition, where they made a deliberate effort to make sure that they would come up with this Russiagate, even though they had intelligence that said the Russians had nothing to do with the election. No, they decided to assemble everybody and put together a narrative and work on that narrative. And what happened? Oh, that narrative echoed. It ricocheted from one network to another, from one newspaper to another. And they just kept going with it and going with it and going with it to the point where, James Comey is out there saying, well, I'm going to have to tell Donald Trump about this one dossier that we found, even though they knew it was fake, right? Because they want to be able to leak that to the media too. And then they went out and they indicted 19 people. So before anybody says, the Biden administration, they were so squeaky clean, they didn't do anything wrong. This is a total I can't even say it. We'll go with authoritarian nut job. The reality is, you guys did it, and you did it in spades, and you did, and you know that it's coming back to bite you in fannies.
Donald Trump and the administration continues to weaponize the Department of Justice. What James Comey did 11 days before the election in 2016 had something to do with the fact that Donald Trump got elected the first time around. This is how Donald Trump repays James Comey? With this malicious prosecution? It's all crazy to me. It's crazy to me. These charges are going to be dismissed. James Comey will win in court.
I'm not so sure about that. I think Brennan is pretty nervous. I agree with our commentator who just weighed in on this. Look, you had 19 people indicted. It was a miserable time. We all lived through it together. And now, maybe it's payback. I don't know. I mean, let me be completely honest with you guys, okay? I don't like the idea of retribution. But I also don't like the idea that one side can do it. And let's be really clear who started this. Really clear, because I've told you before, the president told me himself that he wasn't going after Hillary Clinton because he didn't think it was appropriate, because she was the former, or I guess then current wife, if we can call her that, of one Bill Clinton, a former president. He also said she was my competitor. I don't want to do that, because then we're just going to turn into a banana republic. And so he really felt very strongly about not going after her for those emails and the servers. And he went in there just to do a good job, just to try and get the economy in a better spot, which he did, right? We saw middle-class wages grow for the first time, the most they'd ever grown since all the way back to, you got to go back to JFK to see wage growth like that, median wage growth. So the economy was humming along. I mean, everything was great up until March 2020, when we got a virus courtesy of a lab in China, right? And then Fauci lied about that one too. And this is all coming out too. These are big things. I mean, you cannot lie to the people like this. And for whatever reason, they thought they had it all rigged. And now he came back and he won. And so this is sort of the wrinkle in the plot, if you would. Don't forget what happened back in November of 22. A reporter asked in an international press conference, hey, Joe Biden, President Biden, can you reassure foreign leaders that there's no way Donald Trump is ever going to return to power? And what did Biden say? And I quote, well, we just have to demonstrate that he will not take power by if he does run. I'm making sure he, under legitimate efforts of our Constitution, does not become the next president again. Oh, play it again, Sam, okay? He does not become the next president again. What do you know? I think the more you guys said that, the more the American people were determined to elect him. And so this is how it went, with people like Hillary Clinton saying in a 2019 podcast, I've been interviewed, he knows he's an illegitimate president. And because of that, he's obsessed with the fact that he won the Electoral College. He lost the popular vote by 3 million plus votes. Hey, Hillary, guess what? I guess you got that going for you, because Kamala doesn't. He won the popular and the Electoral College with Kamala. And then you get this one, Maxine Waters repeatedly calling Donald Trump an illegitimate president. You had Bernie Sanders saying Trump's victory was not legitimate given Russian interference. You had media voices all over. This is what I said, ricocheting, right, off of the networks, from NBC to CNN, MSNBC, to outlets in the New York Times and the Washington Post, and all these liberal rags like Daily Beast, etc. I mean, this is what they were pushing nonstop. And they would regularly use this term, the columnists would, calling him illegitimate. Like, who has ever done that before? I don't think we've ever seen that before. Jerry Nadler, John Lewis. On the day of the inauguration, Nadler said he's not legitimate as president. He was tainted by the Russian interference. John Lewis, congressman, 2017, said, I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president. I just figured I'd save you from having to play all of those clips. But you could watch like 20 minutes of those clips. They just kept saying it and saying it and saying it again. And then they got, ladies and gentlemen, a former president of the United States who basically had one step sadly in the grave at the time. And I'm talking about Jimmy Carter. That Michelle Obama didn't even have the decency to go to his funeral after he went out and said this for her and her husband and the entire party. I mean, to think that a sitting president would call another president illegitimate based off false information that Comey and everybody else knew was false. That is unthinkable. It is so wrong. And so when you sit there and you tell me, he shouldn't be doing this, I'm like, what do you think? Who do you think started this? For goodness sakes, Jimmy Carter. I realize you're not with us anymore, but you were wrong. Watch.
There's no doubt that the Russians did interfere in the election. And I think the interference, although not yet quantified, if fully investigated, would show that Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered on his behalf.
So do you believe President Trump is an illegitimate president?
Based on what I just said, which I can't retract.
They're like, woohoo! We got a sitting president to say this because this has never happened before. Okay? Never, ever happened before. Let's go back into, I'm a history buff. I was a U.S. history major at Columbia, back when Columbia was a real school. Okay? Disputed elections and legitimacy talk. Let's talk about 1824. You had John Quincy Adams versus Andrew Jackson. Jackson won the popular vote, but Adams is the one who became president after what they called a corrupt bargain in the House. Jackson supporters loudly claimed Adams was illegitimate. But you never had a former president joining in the chorus. No, there was no Jimmy Carter out there in 1824 to do that because, people had some dignity, shall we say, back then. Dignity, it matters, believe me. And 1876, we had another situation with Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel Tilden. This is the closest historical parallel, really, to what we saw now. You had Hayes losing the popular vote in a backroom deal, the compromise, right, of 1877, which handed him the presidency. And many Democrats called him his fraudulency. Kind of like illegitimate president, not my president. The Russians handed it to him. But again, no ex-president actually came out and said he was illegitimate. You had no sitting president who used to formerly be president of the United States come out saying anything like that. I mean, that's just unheard of, right? Because you're then undermining the entire trust in the system altogether. Well, let's move on to even 2000, right? We remember that one well, hanging chads and all that bit. George W. Bush versus Al Gore. After Bush v. Gore, many Democrats argued Bush was, quote, selected, not elected. And so Representative John Lewis, him again, and others refused to attend Bush's inauguration. But Gore himself did concede. Bill Clinton never called Bush illegitimate. And the party leadership accepted the Supreme Court's ruling. So what's going on now? Why would we have a Jimmy Carter do that? They put him up to it? Wow. And how do you explain all this TDS on steroids that just won't seem to go away? I mean, I would say that the way Obama approached this, he had the media in his back pocket. Biden had the media in his back pocket. I mean, they were just doing nice little cute stories about how cute he was when he licked ice cream cones, right? And they refused to acknowledge any reality, including the disastrous health decline that was obvious to anybody who could see it. And if I reported on it here, I had to be very, very careful, right? I had to say, well, I'm not a doctor, but I've seen this before. They were going crazy. You weren't allowed to talk about these things. It was awful, guys. It was awful. Okay, so don't tell me that they didn't do it, because they did it in spades. Here's Rosie O'Donnell freaking out so badly. She said, she keeps telling her therapist, like, I don't understand why other people don't see this. Her therapist thinks she's nuts. And, I'm inclined to side with the therapist on that one. But, I could have told you that, and I wouldn't have charged you, Rosie.
When people say, I changed my mind, we have to say, welcome back to reality. Let's all be Americans together, right? Because what's happening is not only happening to Democrats, it's happening to everyone. And when the Medicaid cuts go in, old people are going to start to die. What he's done yet hasn't even hit us yet. Right. And if he's not stopped now, we have lost our country. And I don't know, Nicole, how it is that some people cannot see it. My therapist said, why are you so upset? And I said to her, why are you not?
Yeah. Yeah, I have that conversation too, because the gaslighting that I think you're alluding to, if you're a thoughtful, informed person, you do stop and say, well, maybe it is me.
Ooh, yeah, maybe it is you, whatever your name is that hosts the show over on MSNBC and some kind of podcast, which I actually haven't seen up until today. So there you go. New time for everything. Anyway, Rosie is very active on the liberal podcast circuit because she's got to get all these frustrations out. It's like another form of therapy for her, I guess. Maybe the therapist isn't listening enough, so the MSNBC anchor may listen a little bit better to the TDS that is just crippling her. Because you know what's amazing? Check out these poll numbers. Democrats' poll numbers, Dems' poll numbers are just in the, I'll say it, because, I didn't get to talk the bad language earlier, so they're in the toilet, okay? The Democrats' poll numbers are a disaster. And I'm going to show you what this is right now. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen anything so bad as these numbers. Even a few weeks ago, they were bad, but they've just gotten worse. So there's a brand new poll that came out, and I can't wait to show it to you guys because it's like they just can't figure it out. And I think it's because they're trying to overthink sort of how we are, right, as human beings. And I think that they think that they know better, and they don't. So here we go. This is the opinion of the Democrat Party right now. Graphic courtesy of Fox. Thank you for that. Let's take a look. Okay, so we've got favorable versus unfavorable. And the unfavorable is more than half the country. Only 30% of Americans view Democrats favorably. So now what do you do? if you're the Democrat Party right about now. Like, I think you kind of have to start saying to yourself, this is not working. This whole, like, you know, let's hate on ICE, let's hate on Trump, let's be all for men playing women's sports. Like, I just don't think that's working for you. And if I were you, I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice here. I'd actually go back to your roots. And by your roots, I mean, think about what was said in the 1995 State of the Union, okay, by Bill Clinton. Because if this was said today, he would be called a fascist by the modern Democrat Party. This is 1995, the State of the Union, and this is where the Democrat Party used to be. And if they can't get back there, those poll numbers are going to keep getting worse.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
Okay. Reasonable speech. The problem is Donald Trump gives that speech and they all go wild. You get TDS on steroids with Rosie crying her eyes out every time she gets onto a podcast. And The View doing the same exact thing. And this artist that's going to be playing at the Super Bowl calling Donald Trump bad names in Spanish. It's like a Puerto Rican slur that's even like worse than what you would. I mean, it's a bad word. I'm not going to repeat it, okay? I learned a new word today. Anyway, the truth is that you've got a party that just wants to take him down, period. And they weaponized what they did. Now they're angry because he's turned around and said, well, I can do that too. You know, to play that game. And he's not like holding back. Like they actually tried to like dot their I's and cross their T's. He's like, woohoo, you and you and you and you. And so, you know, I'm going to play you some sound from somebody who I don't really like. And I suspect has some rather unscrupulous morals himself, one Michael Cohen. But Michael Cohen's the former attorney. Remember, he went to jail for Donald Trump. He's the attorney for, I should say, Donald Trump. And that was that whole Stormy Daniels thing. You know, he got on MSNBC and he pointed this out. It's like nobody wants to hear it, but don't act like this just started yesterday, okay? Because there was weaponization that went on, severe weaponization that went on during the Obama years and during the Biden years. And even, by the way, when Donald Trump was president, because he didn't see it coming. Watch.
You're saying right now is that the Department of Justice under Donald Trump has been weaponized or has not been weaponized?
I think it's been weaponized under more than just Donald Trump. I think it's been weaponized by government for, I don't know, as long as it's been around.
Well, because I think your argument is it was weaponized then by Comey against Donald Trump. That's what you're arguing right now. And so you think that there will be evidence that will show that in court and so thus validate Donald Trump's vendetta against James Comey?
At least I couldn't have said it better.
So there you go. Look, it was a bad time. it was a bad time, and now, it turns around, it's going to be a bad time for them. And what goes around comes around. Again, I want to reiterate that I'm not saying that this is in any way right, but I am saying that you got to fix this situation. You got to fix this situation, because otherwise you're just going to have this repeating itself over and over and over and over again. And that is not where we want to be, right? That is not a good place for anyone to be. And I think back on just what happened during those years, and I've told you guys the story about how I kept getting calls from one of my banks. Actually, at that time, this had been like my bank. I guess I can say it. What the heck? I had a bank account at Citi, and I had this account since, I want to go back to before 2000. All right, like since 1997. My husband and I had this account together, and they kept calling me like every few months, and like asking me all these crazy questions. And I was like, what is going on? Like, you guys have known me since 1997. Like, why is this suddenly an issue? Well, I think I know why it was an issue, because you know what? They haven't called since. They haven't called since November of 24. Under the Obama and Biden administrations, regulators pressured a lot of banks to close accounts for industries and for individuals that they didn't like, right? This politically motivated debanking trampled on the freedoms of everyday Americans for sure. And thankfully, President Trump is doing something about it right now. He knows what this is. Like, people that he's close to have been through this. So he's taking decisive actions to stop it. His executive order calls out regulators who abused their power and makes it really clear that debanking is going to end. We got to end this stuff once and for all. It's not right, okay? But lasting reform is going to require more than just an order. It's going to require Congress to act. And this is why Americans for Free Markets is standing up, thanking President Trump. I'm glad to partner with them on this thank you here, because believe me, as someone who kept getting calls, who has friends who were debanked, who were not allowed to open up bank accounts and had to do so through family and friends. I mean, that was really wrong, okay? Really, really wrong. It can't ever happen again. So together, we need to establish a national fair access standard to prevent services from being denied based on political, based on social, based on religious views. And we need clarity, right? You need clarity and consistency and long overdue accountability to all this financial regulation. So this is a good thing. If you want to join me in this, you know what? You can make some noise with your U.S. Congress members. I encourage you guys to go to forfreemarkets.com, forfreemarkets.com. Help thank the president here, and do what you can to make sure that your congressperson knows how important this is to get the right kind of regulation and reform through. forfreemarkets.com. It's forfreemarkets.com. So important, and I'm proud to partner with them on this. I look back again at the Comey situation, and I'm just stunned that his own son-in-law was there working. I mean, how does that happen? He got a job in the very office that was going to go after his father-in-law. So he just resigned. His name was Troy Edwards. And he wrote Ms. Lindsay Halligan a note saying, to uphold my oath to the Constitution and country, I hereby resign as the Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia in the Department of Justice, effective immediately. And I'm still like, wait, what was he doing there? I mean, it's like they get super spies everywhere, for goodness sakes, all over the deep state, if you would. That's wild. Look, I think Comey's got some answering to do, but don't take my word for it. The head of the Department of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is all over this stuff.
American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once but twice. And yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation, specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records, yet was never held accountable. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Under Biden, the FBI abused its power for political reasons to try to surveil Catholics who attend traditional Latin Mass, labeling them as quote-unquote radical traditionalist Catholics. Personally, just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris and her nomination, I was placed on a secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. Sadly, there are more examples. The bottom line is this must end.
Yeah, it has to end, okay? And, you know, look, you know, maybe he's more public about it. I get it. It's his style, don't forget. I just think that we've got to get back to some place of normalcy, and you can't be weaponizing the government. And sure, it's happened for years, as Michael Cohen points out, but that doesn't make it right. And I don't love any of this. Like, I don't like what's happening right now, but I don't think there's a choice, guys. I mean, when they got Jimmy Carter up there to say he's not a legitimate president, I mean, that's when they just lost the story, okay? They lost the entire story. That was atrocious. Meanwhile, CNN, oh my goodness, you got a critic of Lindsay Halligan. They're all coming out of the woodwork. They hate her because, well, she's pretty. Okay, so strike one, she's young. Strike two, and she was a former Miss Colorado contestant. Woohoo! Strike three. And she's smart. She graduated from University of Miami Law School. Well, I mean, we could keep going. They just absolutely hate her. So Lindsay Halligan, mid-30s, beautiful woman, apparently started working on Donald Trump's team back when there was that FBI Mar-a-Lago raid, and so he was impressed by her, and things weren't moving quickly enough because they had that guy Eric Siebert, right, in the Eastern District of Virginia. But by the way, he's buddies with Comey's son-in-law. Everybody's looking out for one another, protecting each other. So Trump said, to heck with it. He's out. I'm putting Lindsay Halligan in. And now the media, they're like vultures. They're just all after her. Again, she's too young. She's too inexperienced. She competed in Miss Colorado, heaven forbid. We saw her in a swimsuit. Listen, this is the CNN critic slamming Lindsay, and I love it because the guest on set just shuts him down right into silence. Perfect.
And put somebody who, I mean, is just simply inept and unqualified to actually have that job.
Well, she was apt and qualified enough to get a grand jury to look at the evidence and return 2 charges against him. Are you saying that this process, which is used all over the country every single day to bring crimes all over the code, is somehow broken? These are ordinary citizens in a liberal jurisdiction who looked at evidence from a prosecutor and said, yeah, it looks like there's something here. Is that not what happened?
Yeah.
Watching somebody like Speaker Johnson normalize that, it sends us down an incredibly dangerous path.
I'm stunned to hear you say we're now worried about normalizing this kind of thing. We had an attorney.
You are about to do right now. Let's hear it.
I'm about to tell you what happened in the state of New York when the Democratic Attorney General ran an entire political campaign promising not to uphold justice, but to prosecute one person, Donald Trump. And I didn't hear a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth among Democrats about normalizing the weaponization of justice.
And what we're talking about is the abuse of the system.
What abuse beyond the idea of prosecuting people when Democrats were going after Trump? Were you worried about abuse?
Because I firmly believe that Donald Trump broke the law and he was indicted.
Do you think the 34 charges that are cited all the time were good charges?
But let me actually go back to Joe Biden. Joe Biden indicted his own son. Did he deserve to be indicted? Yes. But he indicted his own son.
You're saying the White House was directing. You're saying the White House was directing indictments. But you're saying they were directing indictments. That's a revelation.
Just have one person speak at a time. What were you just saying?
Yeah, he did pardon him. And
ooh, CNN. You know what is funny? So I give Scott a lot of credit because he goes on that show and he's literally like the only conservative every single night. And so it becomes like blood sport, right? They're just like pounding him and pounding him and pounding him from every single angle. And he's like, ba-dum-ba, 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 ba-dum-ba. And it's like watching a master karate fighter just doom, 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 doom. So it's actually their best rated show. I mean, if you can call anything well rated on CNN. a well-rated show. But it actually, I mean, all the shows do very, very poorly, but that one does less poorly. And I think it's because of Scott. Like, he's on there and he's actually willing to take all these people that are in this group think on. So this is who they're criticizing, this young prosecutor who was able to get the indictment. Now, granted, you know, it's not insanely hard to get an indictment, but she got it. And as I understand it, and other reporters have reported, it was all there. It was all teed up. And you just had somebody in charge that refused to. The prosecutor refused to actually move it forward. Again, maybe because he was buddies with the son-in-law of James Comey, who's working there. I mean, it's crazy, incestuous, weird. I want to give a shout out to one of our great advertisers that help me bring you this show here for free every day. The Trish Regan Show, brought to you in part by Balance of Nature. Balance of Nature, wonderful product. The fruits and veggies, I highly recommend, because you know what? They're just fruits and veggies. If you turn the label over, what you will see are ingredients that you recognize. And that is a big deal, guys, because look, you know, mostly in the supplement business, when you turn the ingredients over, you see a lot of stuff that you don't recognize, right? I mean, I think that's fair to say. But they've got 31 ingredients, and look, the 31 are the 31. They're able to like freeze dry it, and people love it. Like, by the way, people love it. My kid's music teacher came up to me, and I think I told you guys this. I was like, you listen to the show, that's fantastic. He said, yes, I listen every day, but more importantly, I take my Balance of Nature every day. So anyway, I got a kick out of that. It's a wonderful, wonderful product. I encourage you to go onto the website and to check it out there and to look at what exactly is in it. You can get 35% off with my name. Use code word Trish today. Code word TRISH. Not only 35% off, you actually get free shipping as well. So it's a terrific way to really supplement your health. I know I feel better, and I hope you do too. So check it out, balanceofnature.com today. 35% off with code word Trish. Now, the question has become, who is next? I mean, we saw Comey get indicted, and there's a lot of talk about who's next on the list. I have some thoughts. I mean, one, of course, being Brennan, another being Christopher Wray, and we can get to this. But here's the one who's front and center on my mind. She doesn't look too happy there. Letitia James, reportedly about to be indicted rather shortly. There was an article in Bloomberg over the weekend that said, indeed, she is the one who they are looking at this point in time. The U.S. Justice Department is pushing ahead with its investigation of New York Attorney General Letitia James over mortgage fraud allegations after President Donald Trump demanded that the case move forward. So that's, by the way, what they all keep freaking out about, because apparently, and this is being reported through back channels, so take it with a grain of salt, although he does actually get on TV and say, yeah, let's move this one forward, right? So they don't like that he's doing that. But who liked what she did, right? Remember how she was just so viciously wanting to bankrupt him? And she nearly did, for goodness sakes. That famous line in the ABC News piece where she was like, if he does not have the money to pay the funds after they like hit him with a nearly $500 million fine, she said, we will simply have to take his properties. Like, you could just see her, she's chomping on the bit saying, I'm going to go in, I'm going to take over a Trump Tower, it's going to be mine for the state of New York. This is a woman trying to make her political career on being anti-Trump and promising over and over again every day to go after Trump. That is what she ran on. And so when they're sitting there saying, hey, you know, he's wrong, he's bad, I remind you of what she did. And I think she's going to be in trouble for that. She's being investigated, first of all, by the DOJ out of New York for a civil rights violation, because she was violating his civil rights by targeting him so distinctly. The other thing that she's, of course, being looked at is mortgage fraud herself. Apparently, she decided to buy a place in Virginia. And apparently, she decided in the power of attorney to say that that was her primary residence, when in fact, it couldn't be her primary residence, because you see, she's supposed to be living in Albany. She's supposed to be the AG in New York. So that didn't really fly. And well, it wouldn't really be legal. Now, she said, just a miscommunication here. Somebody else was filling in for me as my power of attorney, and they just checked the wrong box, and there's nothing to see here, blah, 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 blah. So, okay, I mean, one should think you should be held to a higher standard, Letitia James, given that you are an attorney general, and you are apparently an attorney, albeit not a very good one. In fact, what happened with your big case that you tried to get Donald Trump to pay a nearly $500 million fine on, it got thrown out, just as I predicted it would, remember?
Fox News Alert, a New York appeals court just this morning has thrown out President Donald Trump's massive civil fraud penalty. The decision from a 5-panel group in New York's appellate division changed the original decision that stood to cost Trump over $500 million. One appeals judge calling the lower court's penalty an excessive fine that violates the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. You might remember that New York Attorney General Letitia James' office says despite this decision, they will not be dropping the case.
It was so bizarre. I mean, the 8th Amendment of the Constitution, right? Because you can't have like these insane penalties that mean absolutely nothing, absolutely positively nothing. And so, yeah, it got thrown out. And now what is she doing? She's going back and she's trying to sue again because she enjoys nothing more than using your taxpayer dollars in the state of New York to go after Donald Trump. Meanwhile, she's throwing her support behind Mamdani, the socialist who really wants to take your money and, well, I guess create government-run grocery stores with it and government-run housing. And keep in mind, there's a big article in the Post over the weekend. He's the guy that lives in a very fancy place back somewhere in Africa. His parents, they have this like compound that's like off the charts, gated compound. But Mamdani wants to take all of your money and redistribute it. By the way, I'm glad I sold my place in New York City when I did. Can you imagine? I mean, people are trying to hightail it out of there. Who wants to live in New York? You got to pay a 4% municipal tax. He wants it to go higher. Kathy Hochul? Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. I mean, you want to talk about just a political animal once again. She's actually coming out and supporting this loser. They just got Eric Adams to get out of the race. I mean, I don't know what they wound up promising him. There were some different things on the table, you know, maybe the ambassador to Saudi Arabia. They had to make it be pretty good, right? Because he was in there and he wanted to, you know, play for something big. But this just came out yesterday. We see that one Eric Adams is ending his bid for the election. They're in the mayoral race, perhaps setting the stage for Cuomo. I mean, I got to tell you, it's still going to be a really uphill battle for Eric. I mean, forgive me for Cuomo, because really nobody likes Cuomo. There was a good piece in the Wall Street Journal, here we go, by the editorial board talking about this. The problem with Eric Adams getting out, they said, was it was just too late. In other words, Eric Adams should have gotten out a while ago, because then maybe somebody else would have had a shot. And now, I don't know. I mean, you could wind up with a socialist nut job. I mean, not just, I mean, communist. I mean, he's a full-on communist. I mean, this is not good. This is not a good precedent for our country. And so now the Democrats, though, interestingly, it's like Trump just keeps outmaneuvering them. This is like a super duper 3D game of chess. Now the Democrats don't know what to do, because if they come out and they support Mamdani, then they're basically communists. And that's going to be a real problem. Let me read to you from this article. Voters are now left with former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who, you know, we still haven't forgiven because of all the COVID stuff. Jessica Tisch, he was saying, or this particular editorial group was saying, they really should have run Jessica Tisch, who's the police commissioner. I guess she should have been running as mayor. She might have actually been able to win, but it's too late right now. And it's quite possible you're going to have a socialist nut job now be the mayor of New York City. I mean, we've had it before. Don't forget about Comrade de Blasio. But this guy, Mamdani, is taking it even further than Comrade de Blasio. Comrade Mamdani wants so much, much more. Free buses, you know, free food, I guess, with government-run grocery stores, free housing. I mean, it's going to be bad. I would just say, I'm going to remind you guys, go look around the world, anywhere you want. You know what? Everybody's tried it at some point or another. And guess what? It never ends well, ever. ever ends well. You know what else is not looking like it's going to end very well? Have you guys been following what's going on with the shutdown? I guess that's another reason why Rosie is so concerned right now. It looks like the government shutdown is in fact nearing, this coming as Pete Hegseth gathers all of these generals to the United States from all over the world. Apparently it's just a feel-good meeting. But let me get you up to speed. The government is expected to shut down in a number of days. Apparently, this came up in an interview just yesterday morning with the president and a CBS reporter. And what's interesting here is that the CBS reporter got a lot of clarity from President Trump. Again, like, he doesn't mince words. I would tell you, like, as a reporter, I can count on one hand, like, 2 people that never, ever lied to me, ever. When I was reporting out a story, and one was actually Carl Icahn from Queens, and the other was Donald Trump. What do you know? From Queens. The guy's from Queens, you know? True to their words. Anyway, he said, look, the shutdown is happening. I'm going to play you a clip from CBS. Keep in mind, it's a little bit slow. Everybody's reading a teleprompter. You can even tell the reporter is like reading right off the teleprompter. A little inside baseball for you there. But it doesn't change what he's saying, which is that the president told him, yep, it's happening. You can blame Chuck Schumer all day long for this.
Spoke this morning to President Trump. Bob, top leaders, both parties, both sides of the Capitol are coming to the White House. Did the president tell you he thinks a shutdown can be avoided?
A shutdown looks likely at this point, based on my conversation this morning with President Trump. He says both sides are at a stalemate. Democrats want to extend health care subsidies that were part of the Affordable Care Act, but President Trump said his focus on health care is on preventing undocumented migrants from having access to any of the U.S. health care system. Now, it's illegal for any non-citizen to have that sort of access. But President Trump says we're not going to have it, quote, we're not going to allow it in terms of moving forward on any discussion unless the Democrats come to his side on health care and don't focus on the subsidies. But based on my conversations with top Democrats, that's not going to happen. So President Trump told me, quote, I just don't know how we are going to solve this issue. That makes a shutdown quite likely. And inside the White House, sources are saying President Trump actually welcomes a shutdown in the sense that he believes he can wield executive power to get rid of what he calls waste, fraud, and abuse. And there is that memo, as you mentioned, that says the government is ready to have mass firings if a deal isn't struck.
Reductions in force, right. Well, we also know that the president took some extraordinary public statements in the past few days. He publicly said he wants to see Adam Schiff, now a senator, Letitia James prosecuted, along with James Comey, the former FBI director, who is now indicted. Yesterday, he twice posted on social media about former FBI director Chris Wray. Did the president tell you, is he planning prosecutions?
I did not speak directly to the president about that today, but fishing around all weekend in his inner circle, it's clear this is just the beginning in terms of possible prosecutions of those who have scrutinized the president or criticized him over the years. You mentioned the mortgage policy potentially of Senator Adam Schiff of California. He's being discussed inside of the Trump administration. So is Letitia James, the New York Attorney General who sued the president over how he valued his real estate holdings. And there are others not even on our radar at this moment, like retired Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley, who are being discussed as people who may have taken action against the administration or president in some way, allegedly, in the views of those inside, and they want to see the Justice Department hold them to account. There's such a gap right now in Washington. Republicans believe what President Trump is doing is accountability. Democrats are alarmed and see this as authoritarian government at work. And there's a real tension there that's not going away.
No. And a justice system that has to deal with evidence and facts. And we're going to talk about all of this ahead with some of our guests. Robert Costa, thank you very much for your reporting.
You know, it's sort of interesting. Here's another story that we haven't really gotten to, but you do know that all of the military officials are going to be gathering in Virginia this week as Pete Hegseth calls them all into a meeting. Apparently it's just sort of a rah, rah, rah. But back to the government shutdown. You wonder how it's going to relate to the government shutdown. I think that Donald Trump absolutely recognizes there's an opportunity in this, that the government shutdown will result in mass firings, and he has been wanting to trim the size of the government for quite some time. So it's sort of like, he gets to have his cake and eat it too. Simultaneously, guys, you got Chuck Schumer, who's out there saying, well, I'm not going to do this, that, and the other. And, he's holding up because he wants health care for illegals. And that's not exactly a winning position, right? If we go back again to looking at those poll numbers that show no one is with the Democrats right now, that they are in such terrible, steep territory there because the favorability ratings are just so low, right? Unfavorable, 54%. So that kind of, it tells you a lot. So the government's going to get shut down. They're going to be these mass firings, potentially, and he's going to be able to turn around and blame the entire thing on none other than Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, leading, of course, these poll numbers to suffer even more. Another big story I do want to tell you about at this hour, and that would be Kash Patel. He's actually come out with saying there were 247 FBI agents in the crowd on J6. That is a big revelation, and he has been able to determine this. Kash has, because of some of the agents that have come forward. He said agents were sent into a crowd control mission after the riot was declared by Metro Police, something that goes actually against FBI standards, which is interesting. What's also really interesting and sort of amazing about this is that you had Christopher Wray come out and say that there were no FBI agents there. And so I think it's a little peculiar that you're getting these two different viewpoints. That's rather remarkable. So what Kash is alleging here is that there was a failure of corrupt leadership that lied to Congress and to the American people about what really happened. And thank you, he said, to the agents coming forward. We are now uncovering the truth. And he is vowing to get more definitive answers about the Bureau's role in the riots. Now, there had been some talk that it was actually some of the FBI agents that were instigating this. He's not saying that. I want to be very, very clear. He said that they were sent in for crowd control. He said, we're fully committed to transparency and justice and accountability. And so one wonders, is Christopher Wray possibly in some kind of trouble for, I believe here, having lied about this? This is going to become another big question as we go down the list here. And there's a lot of people that and Christopher Wray, by the way, was a Donald Trump pick. But once you start getting into the deep state, let's just say it gets really, really deep. And I think there's a lot of like CYA going on, and everybody has to cover for each other. And that's what they do. That's what they do. Anyway, there's so much news. We didn't even get to Soros today, so we'll have to save that one, I guess, for tomorrow. I want to remind you all about my company, 76 Research, because we just put out another note the other day that I can't tell you enough. Like, it's really important that you need to invest for your future. Hopefully, we can provide you with some good research in order to help do that. Initially, it's $1 a month, so go check it out at 76research.com with code word dollar, DOLLAR. This is my company that I started in conjunction with a brilliant investor, a very, very good longtime friend, Rob Horton. So between the two of us, I think we've got some good ideas out there to share with you. So please go check that out. It is lovely to have you all here. What happened? Oh my gosh, I almost lost you for a second. I almost lost you, but I didn't. We are climbing. We haven't had the party yet because, it's been kind of a downer. I was on my way to 1 million subs, and right around the time Charlie died, we got there. And I just wasn't in the mood for a lot of celebration. But, we will have a party. We will celebrate. I want to do something special for you guys. I thank all of you for your commitment to this program and for your commitment to transparency and to honesty and to truth, and for being here in support of me every single day. You have no idea how much that means. To have you, this is just an organic operation. I just started doing the show almost 2 years ago, religiously every day. And you guys know, no matter where I am in the world, I'm doing this show. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to come on 5 days a week. I'm going to do video because, video is what I know and I understand. I feel like I can communicate with people better over video as opposed to audio. Although, good news, Spotify just went on to video. So I'm over on Spotify. I got it. Tomorrow I'm going to give you that link so that we can do that. I could use some stars. I could really use some stars and some subs. Yeah, so do your part. Go to the one with the blue picture. When I'm in red, that's the one that has the video. If you're over on Spotify and you check out the Trish Regan Show, the one in blue with the red, and you have to listen to one of the shows for a little bit before you can rate it. But please, if you would rate it 5 stars only, please, I really would appreciate it. I mean that. I'm looking at Don Bacca, who's been here from the beginning, which is great. Peace of my mind. I didn't even get into to Tylenol. No. And I'm just horrified by all these young women doing what they're doing. Have you seen this, guys? I mean, it's crazy. It's like all over TikTok. All of these young women taking Tylenol. I mean, it's like heartbreaking. I'm looking for it right now because I actually played this the other day. We have over 1 million views on this one. I'm going to play it for you right now. This is just concerning. It's terrifying. And it's again, I think, peace of my mind, it echoes sort of this TDS on steroids like what we saw from Rosie O'Donnell earlier. This is concerning.
Okay, so this is happening. So I have a friend that's a nurse, is an ER nurse. And lately, there's been a spike of women coming in, especially women, coming in with poisoning because they took too much Tylenol or acetaminophen. So this is actually happening. I mean, are we for real right now? Like, you feel like you're in the Twilight Zone because these are adults. These are adult women. And they are now sending themselves to the emergency room because they're taking too much Tylenol.
And you're hearing of pregnant women doing this as well. There are no words. Let me just remind everyone, be very cautious. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm doing a public service announcement, for goodness sakes. What on earth, right? What on earth have we gotten to when you're going to take risks like that with your own body and your unborn child? You know, we have a friend who actually, he needed a root canal, and over the weekend, this is years ago, took too many Tylenol, like a lot of Tylenol, because he was just going crazy with the pain before he could get into the dentist, and he died of liver failure. Okay, this happens. It happens. And, you know, to try and do something that might hurt yourself or your unborn child because you hate Donald Trump so much, I'm sorry, it doesn't even make any sense to me. Like, where are we going as a country? That is not a good place. You look at the tragedies, right, that happened over the weekend. That is not where we should be going. I don't like to even give them a lot of attention because I've read a lot about this, and there's this like copycat phenomenon. And that's why it's discouraged, like, you know, not to put the people's picture up and that kind of thing, because whatever's going on, we're in a very fragile state here, mental state. Maybe that's because of video games. Maybe it's because of lack of community, lack of religion, lack of family values that were so part of the American culture up until recently. I mean, again, it gets us back to where we started on this performer for the Super Bowl who has just such disgusting, atrocious lyrics that don't represent American values in any way, shape, or form. And so what are we trying to do? Shouldn't we get back to something that's healthier and better for everyone? I think we do. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you agree, okay? Let me know in the chat. And by the way, I read all the comments after, so you're always welcome to put something there too. I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you for being here. Until then, have a wonderful evening.